Okay guys, we're going to do some invention activities for Essay 3. So before we even can start doing invention activities, before we can brainstorm, cluster, or free write, we need to understand what is the goal of the author. If we don't understand what the goal of the author is, we can't get to this point. So if you haven't figured that out yet, go back, read the article again, and try to decide, why did this author write this article? What is the argument? What is this author trying to prove to the audience? Okay, if you can't do that, then you're not ready to do invention. Because what we're going to do with our invention activities is this. We're going to brainstorm, cluster, or free write things that we might be able to discuss in our essay. So, for instance, maybe there is an essay that you're reading, and it depends on what article you're reading, right? But I'm just going to make something up. Maybe this article is making the claim that Vincennes University needs to build a water park, okay? Man, we need to build a water park is what this author is saying, and man, this has to happen fast, okay? So you've got the claim. You understand the thing that the author is trying to do is to prove to the audience, we need to build this water park. So as you read, and go back and read the article over and over again, you need to pick out what are the reasons why this author says we need to build the water park. What is the evidence that the author is providing? Okay, so maybe if we're brainstorming, we might write a list. Maybe the author says, okay, VU will make money, okay? And maybe the author provides, okay, I'm just going to do a little arrow down here. Maybe the author provides some statistics. Maybe the author says, we're going to make $11 million, dollars, based on, maybe there's a statistic, and maybe there's a citation. Maybe the person cites a study, okay? So this study is cited. Great. So that is a claim that the author makes, and this is some evidence that the author uses to back that claim up. This is something I can write about later. Do I think this is a convincing piece of evidence? Do I even think that this evidence proves what my claim, the author's claim is? Or maybe the study is really old, okay? Maybe it's a 1995 study. That's not even in this millennium, man. What are you doing here? So we got to think about, all right, is this evidence believable? And it doesn't even matter. If it is, awesome, I can talk about that. If it's not awesome, I can talk about that. That can be a whole paragraph where I simply discuss one of the things, one of the claims, and one of the pieces of evidence that the audience gets when they read this article. Okay, and maybe another thing is, okay, so it would say, and maybe students will be more likely to attend. And maybe the author didn't give me any kind of statistics or anything like that. Maybe all the author did was give me some rational reasons. Well, of course, people want to have fun. Okay. Great. Yeah, of course people like to have fun. Maybe that was one of the pieces of evidence that the author gave. Of course. And maybe another thing is that, students want to be social. Okay, great. Well, those are two pieces of evidence that the author provided as evidence that Vincennes University will have more students. So students will be more likely to attend. And he gave these two reasons. Okay, do you think this is convincing? And do you think it's convincing to the audience? You can write a whole paragraph about that, right? And so what we're doing as we're brainstorming is we're coming up with more reasons why this is a good or bad argument. Basically, is it convincing or not? Essentially, you're not giving me your opinion on do you agree or disagree, because that doesn't matter in this essay. In this essay, the only thing that matters is, will the reader, okay, the intended audience, will that intended audience find it to be convincing. But right now, we're not even really that worried about that. We're just trying to think about things that we can even just talk about. Okay, we're going to discover who the audience is in a different video. But right now, we're just figuring out, okay, what are some things I can actually talk about? Okay, in order to do that, again, I need to know what is the overall claim of the article, and I need to know what reasons that the author gave, what evidence the author gave to believe that. So with clustering, it's basically the same idea. It's just that we're clustering now. We're not writing a list. We can say, okay, here's the main argument, okay? And then all of these little clusters are the bits of evidence that the author provided to back up this one argument. And a lot of times it's helpful for people to do it this way, because if you can't link it back, then it shouldn't be mentioned in your article. So for instance, if there is a claim that VU should build a water park, maybe I want them to, maybe that's my, if you guys can make this argument for me. But basically, if there's a claim that VU should build a water park, okay, what is evidence? And take a look at all the paragraphs, all the different reasons and evidence that the author stated. Can you state essentially what that claim was? And then what is the evidence that the author brought up? Maybe it's a statistic, maybe it's a source, maybe it's a story about, a person who just really, had some kind of an experience that backs up this claim. The thing is, this claim needs to have evidence. And if it doesn't, you can even point that out. You can say, the author really didn't back up this particular claim very well. The author made an attempt to prove this by saying this fact here, but the evidence that was provided simply was not very convincing. It was probably not very convincing to the average reader. Average readers would probably be turned off, or maybe they would think this or that about this particular piece of evidence. So essentially what we're trying to do, whether you're brainstorming or clustering, or if you're free writing, okay? So if you're free writing, you can just kind of write by hand and get as much ideas out as you possibly can on paper. We're looking for maybe a page of by hand writing. What we're trying to do is get as many ideas out on paper as far as what could I possibly write about? And this is where hopefully you've been working hard on the pre-writing stuff up to this point, because it really is important that you use this now, because you're going to notice in Essay 3 that you're really going to have to think, what can I even comment about? Okay, I need to say, okay, the author was trying to make this kind of an argument. In other words, the author was trying to argue this, okay, this, and this was one of the big reasons why the author said that this was true. These were reasons why the author said that this was a good reason. This is evidence, right? So you always have to think, what can I bring up? What can I essentially, what can I talk about in my paragraphs? So essentially that's what you're going to be focusing on when you're doing your pre-writing. So your brainstorming, clustering, and free writing. Or all three of those, you're going to need to focus on what can I bring up? What can I comment on? And it's not like you're necessarily looking for all good things or all bad things. It's not like you're looking for very convincing stuff or just things that are like, well, I don't think that would be very convincing. You're looking for everything, okay? All the claims that the author made, all the evidence that the author gave should be in your brainstorming, clustering, or free writing. And then it'll be up to you to decide which ones makes it into your essay. All right, guys, that's it for invention activities. Go ahead and get started.